You're listening to Empowering Testimonies of Faith with Coach Jeff Connors. Join Coach C, USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer and Certified Health and Life Coach every Monday night at 7 for Empowering Testimonies of Faith as diverse individuals from various professions share their personal journey, leading them to spiritual strength through surrendering themselves to Christ. Coach Connors aspires to influence others to choose a healthy threefold lifestyle with spirituality as the powerful foundation. Now, here is Coach Connors.
Welcome to Empowering Testimonies of Faith with Jeff Connors. Tonight, we have a very special guest in the house, offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach of the Memphis Showboats, Doug Martin. Doug, great to have you in the house.
Hey, Jeff, appreciate it. Great to see you again.
Yeah, so we want to go through your bio, and I'm a little bit confused, so you may have to straighten me out on some of this. But generally speaking, here with the years that I looked at, you were a head collegiate coach for 16 seasons. Is that correct?
That's correct, right?
Okay, and so where did you start out coming out of college?
So, when I was at the University of Kentucky where I played, Jeff, and then I was injured. I had an injury that was, ended my career. And my college coach got me started in coaching at Kentucky as a student coach. Then he hired me as a graduate coach. And then I got my first coaching job full time at East Tennessee State University, FCS school at the time. And I was there for 4 years. And then Coach Logan hired me to come to East Carolina from East Tennessee State.
Gotcha. And then from there, you went to Kent State. What year was that when you went to Kent State as a coordinator?
Yeah, I went to Kent State as the offensive coordinator. Dean Pease was our head coach, really good guy. Dean's a longtime NFL coach. After my first year at Kent, we had a tremendous offensive year. We were really had quite a turnaround. And Dean got hired as the linebacker coach for the Patriots. And so I was promoted to head coach at that time, and I did that for 8 years there. From there, I went to New Mexico State as the offensive coordinator, and then I was hired at Boston College to be the offensive coordinator. And then Kent State had a head coaching opportunity, and they hired me back to come back and be the head coach there. So I did that for another 8 or 9 years. And then I was at the USFL with the New Orleans Breakers for 1 year, and then last year in the UFL with the Memphis Showboats.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, can you talk a little bit more about your playing career at what happened at Kentucky?
Yeah, I was from a little small town, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and grew up there and had a great college career. I had a great great high school coach. It really influenced my life in a lot of positive ways, especially spiritually. And I went to the University of Kentucky and played a little bit as a freshman, started as a sophomore, had a great career going. Coach Jerry Claiborne was our coach that came in, tremendous Christian man, really had a great impact on me. He and Jake Hallam, our offensive line coach, were two of the guys in college that really impacted me the most. And just was having a great year, and then tore my knee up pretty bad and had some nerve damage and things like that and couldn't play anymore. That's a tough time, Jeff. You know how that is when you're playing, all you know is playing, right? And all of a sudden it's taken away from you. And Coach Claiborne and Coach Hallam really helped me through that time and started to grow quite a bit spiritually at that time. Still really wasn't a Christian at that point, but was moving in that direction. I was more of a slow learner, I guess. But and I started student coaching for 2 years, and I graduate coached there for 2 years. And then Coach Claiborne helped me get my first full-time job at East Tennessee State after that. And going there, I happened to work with a guy named Bob Leahy at East Tennessee State. Bob was the offensive coordinator. Bob Leahy gave Steve Logan his start in coaching. And that's how that connection all began. And Bob was a tremendous Christian guy. And that's the time when I gave my life to the Lord, was with Bob there at East Tennessee State, kind of leading me toward that, and just really changed my life.
Well, of course, I spent some years with you at ECU, and I think I was here at ECU at least for 1 year with Coach Leahy.
Right.
So I also remember him. So let's go back to kind of growing up as a young man, getting involved in athletics. Young Doug Martin, what were the challenges that you can remember, that maybe other young men faced growing up that you had to where you had to overcome some adversity?
Yeah, Jeff, when growing up for me was difficult. It was a rough childhood. My parents were divorced. My mom had a lot of different issues, some mental issues and a lot of things, and wasn't a really good situation there. My dad was a tremendous man, really loved him to death, but he had some PTSD problems at that time. I don't even think they diagnosed those things, but so it was really a rough time growing up, and I was hanging with people I shouldn't be hanging with, doing things I shouldn't be done, and probably athletics was the only thing that kept me from being in jail or dead. You're just quite blunt about it. And I kept looking back now, I can see all these coaches that were put in my path that really helped bring me along from junior high. And then especially going into high school, I had a head coach named Emery Hale and an offense coordinator named Chip Granning. And both these guys were tremendous, Christian men. And I just got to the point where I didn't want to disappoint those two men. And they were trying to really help me get my life straightened out. I practically lived with my head coach at that point. He pretty much raised me. So it was a great time. We won back-to-back state championships my junior and senior year, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship at the University of Kentucky. And from there, I got led into another great Christian coach, and Coach Claiborne, and met Vicki, my wife, at the University of Kentucky when we were freshmen, and we've been together since we were 18 years old, and she had a lot to do with me moving in that direction also and getting a spiritual life. And I think I was just slow to get to it, Jeff, because of the way I grew up and both parents kind of being, not exactly what you would want. And what that teaches you to kind of not to trust people, right? And so I think I was really slow to open up to people and to trust people. And these different coaches kind of helped get me to where I could kind of get over that and got to the point where I could give my life to the Lord. And, I think I became a good coach at that point because I began to coach, not for myself and not for money or any of that type of stuff, but began to coach for Christ and hoping to help a lot of young guys that go through what I went through. A lot of guys come from single parent homes or grandparents raised them or whatever. So I always had a lot of empathy for those guys. And I never forget, I was telling you earlier when we were talking on the phone, you were at East Tennessee State, and it's my first job. And I was the running back coach for 1 year, and then 3 years I was the offensive coordinator. Well, after 4 years, our head coach got fired. And, Vicki and I, we've got 2 kids and no job. And I'm praying. We had become Christians at that point. We'd both been baptized. And I was praying that night. I had a high school job that was offered to me in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I was praying at the same time, Coach Logan was probably going to get the head coaching job at East Carolina. And Bob Leahy, the gentleman we talked about before, kept telling me, just hang in there. I'm talking to Steve for you. And, I think there might be an opportunity there. And I was praying that night. And I remember the exact prayer. I just said, Lord, I don't care if you want me to coach in college or you want me to coach in high school or wherever it is. Just put me where you want me to be. And if you could just give Vicki and I some definition of where we're going to go so we can make some plans and know where we're headed. And the phone actually rang at that moment. And it was Steve Logan. And he offered me the job over the phone without an interview. So 2 days later, I landed in Greenville, North Carolina, met the head coach who I'd never met in my life. And, 10 years later, I'd been with Steve the whole time there at East Carolina. And it not only was a great opportunity coaching wise, but, he became one of my best friends.
Yeah, I got a story myself with that. I was at Bucknell University, and I never heard of East Carolina University. And I got to be friends with Ronnie Jones with the Eagles. He was a strength coach, and he was good friends with Steve. And I don't know, they were going to make a change with the strength coach, and that was kind of my connection. And Ronnie called me one day and said, they're looking for a strength coach down at East Carolina University, and would you like me to throw your name in the hat? And I said, absolutely. I was getting my high school principal certificate at the time while I was coaching at Bucknell. So I said, all right, well, that'd be great. So one night, Bill Lewis called me on the phone. Hey, this is Coach Bill Lewis. And just calling you to see if you'd have an interest in this position. I said, yes, sir. I'm not real familiar with it. You know, and then going back to Tennessee, I was coaching at TMI Academy, not too far from Oak Ridge.
Sweetwater,
Tennessee. Absolutely. Tennessee. So yeah. I actually thought that Western Carolina was East Carolina because it was purple and gold. So anyway, I never heard from Bill Lewis for like a month. Now, I was in some golf tournament or something, and I came home. Michelle said, I had some coach called. And so I called him, and he said, Coach Connors, we just want to fly you in here, and I want you to know that you're the guy we want for this job. I'm like, okay, sir, I'll be happy to fly in there. So it was crazy. I guess what they were going to do was hire Dave Huxtable's buddy, but then came to find out he didn't have a master's degree. And I don't know if you remember, but I had to have a master's degree to come to ECU because a chunk of my salary was the 4 phys ed classes I taught every morning.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first thing I always had to do. I had that early morning group, then I had to teach phys ed, and then back to coaching again. But yeah, that's how I landed there. So it's kind of crazy how we all landed in this place.
It is. I tell you what, though, it was such a blessing, though, Jeff. As you know, I mean, working for Steve was just fun. You know, he treated all of us right. He was concerned about your family. He wanted to make sure your family was right, and you know that you were being a good parent, a good father, and husband, and he cared about those things. And I tell everybody, it was the best job I ever had. You know, at one point, I turned down a job to go coach at Alabama when Dennis Franzoni was the head coach, and he offered me a job to go to Alabama. I turned it down, and everybody in the world thought I was completely nuts. But yeah, I was never leaving East Carolina as long as Steve Logan was the head coach there. And, you know, we were being treated like we were being treated. It was a great place to be.
Yeah, I turned down Miami once also. You know,
I remember that.
It was Steve.
Yeah.
So I felt the same way, you know, no doubt. So, you know, a little bit curious about, you know, kind of like the way that you approached coaching as a head coach. You know, once you became a head coach, what was important to you? What was that first meeting like? You know, what were the foundational things that were important to you?
Yeah, you know, the two guys that influenced me more than anybody, Jeff, was Jerry Claiborne at Kentucky, and then Steve, you know, East Carolina. And so Coach Claiborne at Kentucky, he was a real, you know, old school kind of guy, you know, a lot of discipline, really believed in players being first class and everything they did, you know, worried about you more than just football. I wanted to see you graduate and all those type of things. So I wanted to take that aspect of him. And then Steve, I just felt like the way he ran our program at East Carolina, and you know this, we had a plan at East Carolina to win. And it all started with that strength and conditioning program that you ran, that, you know, we were going to be mentally and physically tougher than everybody else. And I knew I had to get that in place as a head coach. You know, and then offensively, I was going to carry over exactly what we did at East Carolina. I carried that over everywhere I went for the rest of my career here and still use that. So that was a no-brainer, and the way we coached the quarterback and those type of things. But I wanted to make sure I treated the assistant coaches the way Steve treated us. I wanted a Christian influence in the program. So I went out and met with some FCA guys and got them involved in the program. You know, we had the upper room at East Carolina that we actually ran as coaches and got to have a little Bible study with the players once a week and really enjoyed that and thought that was a big part of our program there. So I took that to Kent State and to New Mexico State when I was a head coach and made sure I had those as part of our program also. I think that's important. You know, that's why we're there, is to help those young guys through some things. And, you know, there's a lot of things that players go through that they don't want to tell a head coach or any coach. But you need to have somebody in place, I think, from a spiritual realm that they can go to and talk to about problems outside of football. And so I always tried to make sure I had somebody from FCA or some type of Christian organization there for them to be able to relate to. And so I really tried to build it the same way we did at East Carolina.
Gotcha. You know, what's the most glaring challenge you had at the collegiate level as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's trying to get players to understand they all have individual goals. They all have individual aspirations, whether it's, I want to be all conference. I want to be an NFL player. I want to be whatever. So it's getting them to play as a team and to play for each other. And I always felt like that was our strength at East Carolina. I always felt like those guys loved each other. It was not just the coaches against the players or vice versa. We were all in this deal together. And I think getting a whole group to go in one direction and to be selfless, I think that was the biggest challenge. We used to call those guys the ESPN generation, right? They all listen to ESPN. You listen to those players all talking about themselves and all that. So it's getting everybody to be a team and be team oriented. And the thing is, and Jeff, as you know, the second they give into that, all those individual dreams that they want, they naturally catch up to you because you're having success as a team and you're winning games and you're doing well. And then those individual accolades come. But I think it was just getting the young men to understand that if you just give yourself to the coaches and give yourselves to each other, you guys can get where you want to go.
What were your most rewarding experiences as a head coach that you can remember?
Oh, I think the two programs I had, those were two of the most challenging, probably coaching jobs in America. Kent State has never won. It's been a really difficult place. New Mexico State was the same. And, ironically, when I took both programs over, they were talking about discontinuing both programs. So I'm really proud of the fact that both those programs are still alive today. We had to raise a lot of money, and that became a big part of my job to keep those programs alive. Got both of them competitive. At Kent State, we were bowl eligible in 2006 for the first time, I think is in 25 years. And Julian Edelman was my quarterback, who went on to be a Super Bowl MVP with the Patriots. And I was really proud of Julian. And I had Josh Cribbs before him, who went on to play with the Cleveland Browns for about 14 years. So I'm really proud of developing both those guys as quarterbacks and, just kind of getting that program settled. And then New Mexico State, I think, is the same thing. We went there and that program was really in trouble. In 2017, we went to the first bowl game in 57 years for that school and won the bowl game. And they had a quarterback there named Tyler Rogers that finished third in the nation in passing offense. And, I was really proud of what he did. Ironically, I brought Steve Logan out that spring to work with our quarterbacks and talk with our team and try to get us going in that direction. And, lo and behold, that next year we popped that bowl game. And so those are probably the two most rewarding things as a head coach that I went through there. Both of them were difficult jobs, and it's hard to sustain that success. But we got both of them there and probably saved both those programs from going under.
Yeah, so I've heard Steve talk a little bit about, the differences with the professional level, collegiate level, and how much he enjoyed some of the things on the professional level. What are the things you're enjoying now with what you're doing?
I think the professional level, it's the relationships with the players are a lot different. It's, really nobody calls you coach. It's, hey, Doug. And it's, hey, and so that's really a unique thing because these are grown men you're coaching now. They've got families. It's a job for them. And I think it's really nice, that mature relationship you have with those players. They're really intelligent, self-motivated guys. You don't have to try to convince these guys to practice hard or play hard in that stuff because it's their livelihood. At the same time, they really value you as a coach because they understand that, you're the guy that's keeping that money coming into them. And so that mutual respect going back and forth, I think has been unique. I will say this, Jeff, I really missed the college game though, in terms of developing players. The guys we get, they're pretty much already developed. So I really do miss, being able to get David Garrard as a freshman and watching him go all the way to a senior and what he becomes. And just like, when we took those guys with you and you take them as a freshman, put them in the weight room and chain them to a squat rack. And 4 years later, look what they've become. And so I really think I'd like to get back into the college part of it and coordinating back in college again, just for that part of it.
Gotcha. Well, I guess at this point on what you were just talking about, let's talk a little bit about the NIL and the portal. I'm just curious as to some of your feelings about how extreme it's become, where we couldn't buy anybody a hamburger without paperwork or have them to your house for dinner. Or, I bought Purnell, a pair of pants one time because they never gave us warm-ups to travel to the bowl game.
Right.
Like things like that. And I was worried about getting fired. So, I mean, how do you do that fairly? I mean,
It's
how do you think
amazing.
it should have been done?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how far that's come? I mean, because you're right. At those times, you couldn't even take a kid out for lunch. I mean, you could be fired. So, yeah, I mean, just probably like you, I agree. The players need to have more than just that scholarship. But I think the way it was done was completely crazy. There's no regulations in it now. I think, number one, for the NIL, there should be a cap somewhere. Just in the NFL, you have a salary cap. It's not going to go above this. And I think to do that would have been smart for the NCAA, if only to keep the competitive edge for each team. Like my oldest son coaches at Wake Forest right now. They can't pay the same as Clemson, as North Carolina. So now it's not becoming who's the best coach and who's going to coach the best. It's who can afford the best players. So I think if it had some type of salary cap going into it with that in mind, that would have helped. I think also, now, Jeff, you got these, whatever they want to call them, agents or handlers that are negotiating the NILs for these kids. Most of these guys are really just taking advantage of these players, I believe. I think somewhere it should have been set up to where maybe this money is put into a trust so that when the player graduates, that's when he gets this money. And more to protect the player than anything else from other people getting their hands on his money. And now they're a little bit older and they might know how to spend this money a little bit wiser than what they're doing right now. I saw the other day on TV, Oregon, all their players went out and bought diamond necklaces, the same diamond necklace. And I'm like, why are you wasting your money on that? This money you're getting right now could set you up to maybe put a down payment on a house later on or something like that. So I think if the NCAA had made it to where there was a salary cap, and then this money's going to be put into a trust for you that when you graduate, here's the money, now go do something with it. I think it could have been done a lot smarter had they approached it in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish somehow it could be performance-based, but.
Well, there's a lot to that too, because, you're paying a guy that much money and then all of a sudden they're not playing anymore. They're not the starter. I mean, yeah, and the other thing is I see now these players are opting out after 4 games because, they want more money. The UNLV quarterback, they're 4-0 for the first time since the 1990s. Well, he stepped out. He opted out because he's not getting enough money. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That just like the NFL pro players, you have to negotiate your contract before the season or after the season. That should be the same rule in college too. You shouldn't be allowed just to walk away without some penalty being in place.
Right. No doubt. Well, it's interesting. So let's go back to the ECU experience a little bit. We can talk about this 1999 team, but what are some of your fondest memories of your experience at ECU?
Oh man, again, Jed, the relationship with the coaches and players. I mean, you talk about a character of the staffs we had, man. There were some characters come through there, as you know. But I'm really good friends with just about all those guys to this day, and they were great relationships and a lot of fun. A lot of great days playing golf with Jags and you and a lot of other guys that Chuck Pagano, who was one of the funniest people that ever went through there.
Yeah.
So I think all that, the relationships with the players, obviously the games we won some big games. I was trying to convince our players at Kent State that just because you're a group of 5 team doesn't mean you can't go beat a power conference team.
Right.
And I had never looked, Jeff, at over that 10 years, the power conference teams that we beat. I'd never gone back and really looked at how many there were. And I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 40 something. In that time, there was like 41 power conference schools that we beat. And I mean, I don't know that that'll ever be done again at a mid-major anywhere. And I mean, I felt like, it was so much fun because we had a plan, and it was obviously the strength program. We're going to out tough you. We're going to get you in the fourth quarter. And man, we just believe if we got you in the fourth quarter, we're going to beat you. And, it was fun. Miami, we did that to them, NC State, South Carolina. Man, just a lot of fun times and a lot of great people that I got to be associated with at that time.
Yeah, and of course there were, I know, at least 2 years when we beat 5 Power 5 teams in the same year.
Yeah, that 99 team was one of them. Yeah.
And, I was, of course, at ECU twice, so I counted them up one time. I thought it was somewhere between like 35 or 30. I don't know if it was up toward 40, Power 5 victories I had coached in at ECU. So, I've always been real proud of that.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, that 99 team, it was Duke, West Virginia, South Carolina, Miami, and NC State.
Yeah.
Those were 5 of our wins in 1999. I mean, can you believe that? That to be done by any group of 5 school today would be amazing, right? I mean, that's just not done anymore. So it was a testament to, Coach Logan, his leadership, and just all the players and coaches at that time. I think the great thing, Jeff, and as you know, we expected to win those games. I mean, we walked in that stadium expecting to beat those people. And that was the mentality. And, man, it took a lot to get it there, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anybody we didn't think we were going to lose to. And, I look at fourth quarter now, and they got this video that comes on, and then everybody in the stands has that the red flag, no quarter flag. And I think that's great. It's awesome for the fans, but I always wanted it to be a secret on the sidelines. When I saw guys bending over, going off the field, and I'd be whispering to the guys down the sideline, hey, you see it now. Or they'd come to me and say, hey, Coach, look at that. Yeah, it's happening. We got to start tasting blood now.
The greatest example of that, Jeff, I always thought was that 1999 Miami game.
Oh, yeah.
They jumped up on us in that first half. I mean, we're down 20 something, I think. And, at halftime, I remember we were in there talking as a staff, and while to a man, we said, just hang on in the fourth quarter. They're going to slow down. They'll slow down in the fourth quarter, and we won't. And sure enough, man, about halfway through that fourth quarter, that game was ours. And everybody, just what you're saying, everybody on our sideline knew it. Everybody. Yeah. And so that was a confidence and a great feeling.
Yeah, Santana Moss ran right by me in the first quarter, and there was like a breeze that hit me.
It looked like he's on a Honda motorcycle, right?
Whoa. Yeah, I mean, the list of guys they had on the team, that team was just ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know how many first rounders, 25 guys that got drafted. I mean, big names, huge names. But let's talk a little bit more about Coach Logan and how important it was for him he told the players very regularly that, they would definitely be cheating themselves if they did not have a spiritual life. And, we had kind of had that preparation every week, where I gave the immoral presentation and you had them in the upper room. So it was kind of
we got them from both sides.
I don't know how I got tricked into that, but anyway, talk a little bit about upper room and the importance of that, and then how you brought that to your other programs, maybe.
Yeah. So when I got to East Carolina, Coach Logan approached me about this upper room, and he had started it, I believe, at East Carolina when he was an assistant coach. And it was basically, I think after Thursday's practice, we'd have a 20, 30 minute just Bible study, basically, where we'd talk together. Whoever wanted to come is always voluntary, whoever wanted to show up. But it was done every week. And we'd routinely have, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 40 guys would show up. And I think it was really kind of the backbone of that program that, we had a spiritual basis to it. And I remember when Steve handed that over to me, I was kind of a baby Christian at that time. And he said, this will be good for you too, because, you'll grow as a Christian man having to lead these guys at this moment. And a lot of the coaches came and talked through it. It wasn't just me. It was a lot of different guys, yourself included, that would come and talk to them in that upper room. But that became a real important thing, I think, to our players, definitely to me and our coaches. And we continued that throughout my entire time there. Then I brought the same thing to Kent State. They had never had anything like that at Kent. Kent's a very liberal college, like a Cal Berkeley type of place, and that was kind of shunned at that time at that place. And but we had a great guy named Ted Schumacher, who was an FCA leader up there. And then I met another pastor named Jay Howley, who became one of my best friends. And I got both of them involved in it. So we did the same thing there the entire time I was there. And we saw a lot of guys, at Kent State give themselves to Christ. Saw a lot of guys at East Carolina do that too. And then same thing in New Mexico State. Had a guy there that did the same thing for us. And every place, it became really important to our players that, we had that. And it was important. A lot of our coaches showed up. And it just gets you grounded, I think, Jeff. It gives you a foundation to coach from, to play from, get to know each other on a different level. You start to care about each other more than just a football player. And I think that's important for teams to have that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and I was involved in all kinds of different things with the program. I guess I'm trying to get maybe your perspective with regard to my profession. I started at ECU for I think $35,000. Everybody laughed at my car, and Steve worked. He worked really hard to get me raises every year, and I really appreciated that. And I didn't really foresee that Oklahoma State right now, the guy's making $1 million a year. Michigan, same thing. Mickey Marotti, my friend at Ohio State, $900 and something a year. Shoot, I came around too early, man.
No doubt, both of us, buddy. I went to East Carolina making $32,000 a year as the tight end coach, special teams coordinator. I think Todd Berry was the offensive coordinator our first year. He made $50,000 as offensive coordinator. I think the guy there now makes $400 and something. So times have changed. Yeah.
Well, I know that I'm familiar with the guy that you had at New Mexico State to some extent. I've met him a few times, and just maybe speak a little bit about him and you guys' relationship and how important that is. I think that's really an important thing now in college football.
Talking about Edelman?
No, I mean your strength coach.
Oh, strength coach. Oh, Tobias Jacoby?
Now the guy at New Mexico State.
Oh, New Mexico State, Don Decker. Yeah. Well, going back to Kent State, I was, you recommended Tobias Jacoby for me to come be our strength coach. Changed our program, literally changed our program because he put in your system there. And that's when we hit that winning season there and got them bowl eligible. So just kudos to you for that one. But Don Decker had as a strength coach at New Mexico State. He and I were really close. And he'd been an SEC strength coach. And when Houston Nutt got fired at Arkansas, Don couldn't find a job anywhere again. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get him hired. Tremendous Christian guy. And he did a Bible study at his house for our players the whole time we were at New Mexico State, along with the FCA guy that we had. So, between both those guys, really changed the program and changed those kids there. Don now is the head of the Strength Coaches Association, CEO of their organization. I still stay in touch with him quite a bit, but just a great guy in all forms, just like you. He was more than a strength coach. He was a motivator. He handled the players' nutrition, which was really lacking at New Mexico State when we got there. But the nutrition program he put in place was second to none. And then obviously from the strength coach part of things. And I don't think people realize the bond between a strength coach and a head coach at a university for football in particular. Your strength coach has more time with the players than any other coach on your staff. So for there better be some trust. I know Steve had that with you, and I had that with Coach Decker at Kent, and with Coach Jacoby Coach Decker at New Mexico State, and with Coach Jacoby at Kent State. There better be a lot of trust there, and that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I really treasured the relationship I had with Steve, and it was really hard for me to leave. And all these rumors were flying around about Steve wasn't going to be there long, or he was going to leave, and then the AD talked to me and said, well, if something happens, you can train the Olympic sports. I'm like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I'm a football guy.
no
So,
doubt. No,
yeah,
you know, another thing about Steve, Jeff, that I always really appreciated about him was, you know, the family. Your family was important to him.
yeah,
You know, and I don't remember a night where we worked all night. You know, Sundays we'd work till about 9 o'clock at night, but every other night he wanted us to be home with our kids. He wanted us to, you know, see them before they went to bed. That was important to him. Now we came in early and we got our work done, but we were organized, we were disciplined, so we could do that. But I always appreciated, and I always treated my staff like that from then on. Wherever I was head coach, I never stayed into those 1 a.m. hours and all that stuff where coaches are never home, don't get to see their kids grow up, and don't get to see their little league games. And, you know, Steve was never like that. And, you know, when you have a happy staff and a staff that's really, you know, bonded like that, they don't want to leave you. And that was important.
yeah, no doubt. Did you take any of Steve's little sayings with you along the road?
I'm sure I did. I know I did at some point. I know hotter than a $2 pistol came up a couple of times, and I'm sure there was a lot of other ones. But you know, he had a great influence on me, Jeff, as you know. I mean, he really taught me how to coach a quarterback, first of all, and you know that offensive system that we ran at ECU. I'm just telling you. I mean, I coached Julian Edelman at Kent State, and he went on to play for the Patriots. And you know, Julian and I are still really close to this day. Julian would always tell me, Coach, we're running the exact same plays at New England that we ran at Kent State, but it was so much easier at Kent, the way we called everything, the verbalization of it, the terminology, and that was all from the exact same system that I brought from East Carolina. And so I always appreciated an NFL player, you know, telling me that. And that system, I used that system at Kent State. I used it at New Mexico State. I used it in USFL, UFL, and it stood the test of time. It's been tweaked a little bit here and there, but, you know, Jeff, if I brought in the 1994 East Carolina team, they could still call our plays because that terminology is still the same. And, you know, it's amazing how good it really was.
Yeah, speak a little bit to your time with David Garrard and you know, his progress and then his success in the league.
Yeah, you know, David was just had one of the best spirits about him of any player I've ever been around. You know, he just wanted to be coached. You know, you remember when he came in, he was what, 270 pounds, I think, when he came in.
69.
Yeah, and the first we redshirted him, and he just worked with you all the time to get his weight down. I think the first time he played was 230 or 235 the next year, and just a completely different person. But I think that speaks to how disciplined David was and how much he wanted to be coached. And, you know, I remember as a freshman, we really, you know, we're kind of playing with kid gloves with David. We were trying to bring him along, make sure he had some success, and we gained some confidence. And I think the turning point for him was the Memphis game, his redshirt freshman year. And I remember about halftime, Steve saying, Doug, you know, I think you just need to take the gloves off and let him play, man. Every play, just throw the ball. And he was ready, and he threw for like over 400 yards in that game, and we won it handedly. And from that time on, David just, man, he was so much fun to coach because he just wanted to absorb everything. He was really a smart player, not just gifted athletically, which there's no question about that, his arm strength and all that, but he could play. He could play smart, man. He could check you into plays. He could do all sorts of things. By the time he was a senior, man, we were on autopilot with him. It was just fun every day because you knew he was going to make a play.
Yeah, the beer truck, runaway beer truck.
He wasn't fast, but man, he could gain yards now. He could run over some people.
Yeah, I mean, he could stand in the pocket with 3 people hanging on him and still be standing on his feet throwing a ball.
No question, and throw it accurately too. That's the amazing thing about him. And you know, I was really fortunate. I had some great quarterbacks. You know, when I was the coordinator there, we had Mark Crandall, we had David Garrard, I had Cribbs and Edelman with Kent State, who both were a lot like David. You know, Edelman was one of the most competitive people I've ever been around, and you know, David was right there with him.
Yeah, I don't think anybody liked tackling him on a speed option either.
No question. No question. They get tired of that in a hurry.
But yeah, I had him down to 235 was the lowest he was. We ran we ran 3 miles every day at noon. And I'm not sure how much that helped him, but I think it was just like, hey, I got to not eat as much because I'm tired of running this 3 miles. And we didn't, I don't run 3 miles fast. So it was, it was that type of thing. But just to remind him to get his weight down. But, one summer, I think was going into his senior year, I think he's weighing maybe 247, something like that. And he was still running with the skill guys. And at the end of the summer, a guy's weighing 247 pounds. He makes 10 300s with 30 seconds rest. Mm-hmm. And so, another quarterback might have said, hey, man, I'm a quarterback. I need to run with the lineman or whatever. But David wanted, that leadership part of it, that was important to him. And I really appreciated him because that definitely wasn't easy for him to do.
No, it was important to him. I think that's why the other players believed in him so much and played so hard for him. They believed he was going to make a play, but, David did everything in the world you ask any player to do. I mean, just because he was starting quarterback, you're right. He wasn't going to duck out of anything. And he's a good one.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, you talked about some of the struggle that you went through growing up, and how did that impact your leadership with your family?
Yeah, I think, later in as I grew and, my parental situation got a little bit better. My dad and I had a much better relationship. Once I was probably in college and beyond that, after we got married, I had a much better relationship with my dad than what I had earlier. And I just always wanted my kids to know that I loved them, that, they could come to me and talk about anything. So that situation, obviously, I think made me a better parent. I think, obviously all of us coaches outkicked our coverage with our wives. I know you and I both did. So Vicky had a lot to do with me, but in the way I parent and teaching me how to parent. So it's always a team effort in that. But we've got 3 great kids, Corey, Molly, and Bobby, and they're all successful now. And, it's probably the most important job you'll ever have, obviously, is raising those kids. And I'm thankful, like I said, to be coaching with Coach Logan, where I got to spend a lot of time with my kids. And then I actually got to coach with Corey. He was actually on my staff at New Mexico State. So not many people get that opportunity. And so that was a lot of fun.
So tell me a little bit more about what they're doing now, your kids.
Yeah, so Corey is on the coaching staff at Wake Forest. He's the director of recruiting for the offense at Wake Forest. Been there for 3 years now and loves it. He's got 2 little boys, 4 and 3 years old. And so great seeing the grandkids are the best, as everybody knows. We have 5 of them right now, but Corey's doing really good. Really, really proud of where he is. Molly, our daughter, she lives in Phoenix. She's actually married to a young man that was my quarterback at New Mexico State.
Oh, wow.
Matt Christian. And Matt is a coach. He's on the staff at Arizona State right now. And so really proud of Matt and Molly. They've got 2 kids now. She's got a boy and just had a little girl back in June. So thrilled for them. And then Bobby, our youngest, and Jeff, you won't believe this, Bobby is training the special ops and the Secret Service. So he works for a private defense company, Marathon, lives up in Pennsylvania. He's got a little girl now and been married for a couple of years and doing great. But he works these AI robots, and he actually takes these robots and they do combatives against he's done the Marines. Now he's doing special ops in the Secret Service and help training those guys. So they're all 3, really good parents. They've got great spouses and couldn't be more proud of all of them.
Interesting. When I first got out of coaching at ECU, I came down and trained 2nd and 3rd Battalion MARSOC Marines for about 7 or 8 months. And that was very interesting.
Yeah.
But
different way of life with those guys, right? Bobby actually started down here at Camp Lejeune with the defense companies they were training the Marines here at Camp Lejeune, and then he got promoted up into Pennsylvania to work with this other group. But those are special people.
Yeah, I was down at Sneed's Ferry for a while.
Nice.
But yeah, so you're now living in Emerald Isle.
Yeah, that's hard to beat. That's hard to beat, as you know.
which is my favorite town.
Yeah.
And I bought a house there in 1994 or something crazy. And we held on to it, and we actually just renovated it. And now I'm doing my dream thing. I'm putting in a pool in the backyard and an outdoor kitchen, a little fire pit, and so forth. That starts mid-October.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to have to get together a little bit.
Yeah, as we got to East Carolina, we got hooked on this area down here. And one of the great things is about my wife is I'm married to a realtor, so she knows how to handle all that stuff. And we start off, we bought a condo down here, and then we moved from that to a duplex, and we moved from that to buying an actual house down here to one day retire to. And so Vicky did a great job with all that type of stuff. And I'm living the same dream as you. My dream was always to get that boat in the driveway, Jeff, and I finally got that. So now we're out fishing a lot and out on the boat with the grandkids and the kids. And it's a great place to live down here, as you know. It's kind of like the land that time forgot, and people down here are just phenomenal. So even though, I'm coaching and I leave for part of the year to go coach somewhere or something, this is always going to be home for us.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, Michelle's still in real estate also.
It's good to have smart wives, buddy.
No doubt about that. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And, I'm just straight up trying to bring as many people to Christ as I can. I've been through a lot myself with, I had a melanoma that jerked a knot in me, and some other things that happen to you that kind of just make you realize what's really important in your life.
I'll promise you, Jeff, and I appreciate you and your friendship, and love to see you again. Miss you guys, and the times we had there were so special. And I'll tell you, you impacted a ton of players that come through all the universities you've been at, but I know especially East Carolina. And I'm like you, the effect that we had on people from a spiritual part of things, that's going to last forever.
Yeah.
The football thing, it comes and goes, but the way you coach and the way you hopefully, got some young men to go the right way for a Christian perspective, that's going to last a lifetime.
Yeah. And I started a website, armorlife.org, because I think that scripture about putting on the armor of God is so important. Every day when you wake up, I really believe it's a spiritual battle. Yeah, and your only offensive weapon, and I say this on pretty much on every podcast, is that sword, and that sword's the word.
I agree 100%. Good. I don't know how you coach without a spiritual foundation, to be honest with you, because there's so many highs and lows, and so many things out of your control. Injuries and this and that, and so many things that affect whether you're employed or not the next year. So to have that foundation. It's the only way I could have stayed in coaching for sure.
Yeah, you get caught up in some vices. I've seen people go into depression. I've seen a few different things with regard to coaches. But I was very fortunate in that I survived 7 head coaches with a steady paycheck. So I can be nothing but thankful for that.
I hear you. Well, I'm really proud of what you're doing, Jeff. It's amazing.
I appreciate it. So what kind of a tradition here with my new podcast is I ask my guests to offer a prayer of hope at the end. And I would love for you to do that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to reignite with Jeff here and for what he's doing. And I pray that these words would affect people, Father. I pray that you just give them hope. You know there's a future there for them. That future is in you. You can change lives, Father, and we know that. We've seen you do it. You've done it in our lives. And it's amazing the people that you put in our path to change our lives. And pray that you would make us those people that we would put in the path of anyone that needs help. And I pray that you would bless what Jeff's doing and just help him every day to be strong, to use that sword to win lives for you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. All glory, respect, and honor to our Lord Jesus Christ. And hopefully I will see you soon.
Absolutely, brother. You take care of yourself.
I take care.
Join Coach C, USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer and certified health and life coach, every Monday night at 7 for empowering testimonies of faith as diverse individuals from various professions share their personal journey, leading them to spiritual strength through surrendering themselves to Christ. Coach Connors aspires to influence others to choose a healthy threefold lifestyle with spirituality as the powerful foundation.